Oh, sorry, I was muted. I have Lori Childers, Addison Northwest. I do not have Alice Farrell from Barry. Next one is Jim Salzgiver, Bennington Rutland SU is here.
Just, Sue, for the ones that you don't hear, if Alice happens to be here, I was just going to check the attendee list as well, too. So if somebody is here and we just didn't catch you, if you could raise your hand, that'll put you up to the top of the list and we can see pretty quickly if we've missed you. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. So Lori Childers, we have Jim Salzgiver, we have. Haven't seen yet Michael Fisher from Burlington. Mark?
He is here. Michael
Okay.
Fisher has got his hand raised. So that's
okay.
good.
I'm going to mark him present. So
Okay.
thank you. Mark Clough is here from Caledonia Central. Lynn Jonich is here from Champlain Valley. Aaron Knox is here from Essex Westford. Polly Rico is here from Franklin Northeast. Tara Sweet is here from Franklin West. Michael Inners is here from Grand Isle SU. Clarence Haynes is here from Greater Rutland County SU. Russell North is here from Hartford SD. James Payton is here from Kingdom East. David Bickford is here from Lamoille South. Jack McCarthy is here from Maple Run. Adrian Raymond is here from Mill River. I have not seen Rick Dooley, Milton School District. Is Rick here? Neil, can you hear me?
Yep, I can, Sue.
Okay.
I was just looking to see. Oh,
Okay.
I think I see Rick at the very bottom here.
Okay.
It just looks like he doesn't have audio going just yet.
Okay, so I will mark him present.
And there's the audio.
All right. Don Collins is here from Missisquoi Valley. Dave Sharp is here from Mount Abraham. I did not see Leon Johnson from Mount Anthony.
Leon expects to be a little bit late. He's refereeing a game.
Okay, thank you. So when he joins, that will change he may join before we get to the resolutions, but we'll have to keep an eye out for him because that will change the 60% amount for the resolution passing. So I'll move on. Edie Granding is here from Mount Mansfield. Kevin Amyot is here from North Country. I did not see Judy Murray from Orange East. Is she here?
I do see her, yes. I see her.
Okay.
Yes.
I will mark her present. And I did not see Jerry Cahill from Orleans Central.
I am not seeing that either.
Okay. Bob Flint from River Valley Tech is here. Allison Knott from Rutland City is here. Angela Ouellette from Rutland Northeast is here. Kelly Hersey from SAU 70 is here. Elizabeth Fitzgerald from South Burlington is here. Richard France from Southwest Vermont SU is here. Troy Palmer from Springfield SD is here. Abigail Campbell from St. Johnsbury is here. Flor Diaz-Smith from Washington Central is here. Kathy Galuzzo from White River Valley is here. Dan MacArthur from Wyndham Central SU is here. Pamela Frazier, Windsor Southeast SU is here. Amy McMullen, Pamela Frazier, Windsor Central SU. Amy McMullen, Windsor Southeast SU. They are both here. And that completes the list. There are currently 34 delegates here.
All right. We've got one hand raised in the attendees. Nancy, you can talk now if you want to unmute. Do you have something to say?
I'm just a little confused. I got something from Sandra, said to rename myself.
Sorry, that was specifically for Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just so everyone knows, if you're an attendee, you won't see your picture on the screen and you'll automatically be muted. When you have a question, if you put your hand up, then someone will unmute you and you can ask your question. I think Neil will call on you first. I've had a lot of people emailing me asking me that question. That's why I just want to let y'all know that.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. All right. So I guess with that, we will get started with the evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the 2020 annual business meeting of the Vermont School Boards Association. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting is being held completely remotely for the very first time. And I hope it's the only time that we need to do it this way. I would like to welcome everyone to the meeting, including voting delegates, alternate voting delegates, school board members, and those who are not school board members. VSBA bylaws allow one vote per member SU or SD. Voting delegates are school board members who will be casting those votes, and they should all be signed into this meeting as panelists through the link provided by the email. I'm pretty sure we've got that taken care of with our last little effort there. Alternates and all others in attendance were provided a different link, as Carrie had mentioned, to sign into this meeting as attendees. 1 second. Attendees don't have voting rights. So if a voting delegate is unable to vote for any reason, we will move the alternate into the panelist mode to allow the alternate to vote. Everyone who is a school board member and an SU or an SD that is a member of the VSBA has the right to speak at this meeting according to the VSBA bylaws. I'd like to take some time to review the procedures for this meeting so that everyone understands how we'll conduct things this evening. Voting delegates, as we had mentioned, are participating in this meeting as Zoom panelists. If you're a voting delegate, please check that your SU or your SD next to your name is showing correctly in Zoom. If a correction is needed, you can change it yourself, or you can also ask Carrie to do that via the chat or through a phone call to 802-477-3601. And Carrie's phone number is also listed on the slides. It'll be shown on your screen. If you are a voting delegate and you're having technical difficulties, please notify Carrie through the chat feature or by calling her. In the event that there is not a quick fix, we will elevate your SUSD's alternate to panelist status, which will allow them to cast a vote. All school board members from an SU or an SD that is a member of the VSBA have the right to speak at this meeting. In order to be recognized to speak, which also includes making a motion, please raise your hand in Zoom. So for those folks that may be new to the platform, you should have that capability by hovering over your picture, or I think there's a link at the bottom of the screen for raising your hand. Statements will be limited to 2 minutes. Attendees will be allowed to talk so that they can make their statements. A participant who has spoken once on an issue will not be allowed to speak again on the same issue until all other participants who wish to speak have spoken. If you are having difficulties or have any technical questions, please use the chat feature or give Carrie a call. In order to refrain from a side meeting taking place during this annual meeting, we're going to ask that you only use the chat feature to seek assistance during the meeting and not to comment on the meeting's proceedings. Resolutions require a 60% vote of delegates to pass. VSBA staff have been busy confirming and checking all of the voting delegates, and so I'll turn it over to Sue. Do we have now the official numbers and what the 60% number of votes is?
Yes, with 34 voting delegates here, 60% would be 21 votes.
Okay, so we will need 21 votes in order to pass a resolution this evening.
And that will change if Leon joins us.
Okay, so we'll just keep an eye out for that. One other thing just to highlight, so for attendees, if you do wish to speak tonight, because right now you're in a mode where your microphone and camera are off, just raise your hand. And when we see that, we can then choose to allow you to talk. And then at that point, you'll just need to unmute and you'll be able to talk to the rest of the group this evening. All right. First up on the order of business this evening is approval of the minutes from last year's annual business meeting. The minutes of the VSBA's 2019 annual business meeting were included in your meeting packet. And is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented? And I will ask that in order to make the motion, if you could just raise your hand, please. Adrian from Mill River. And I think you got to unmute just to make your motion.
Sorry, I thought raising my hand was going to be enough. I will make that motion that you already stated.
Okay. Adrian moves to approve the minutes from the 2019 annual business meeting. Don Collins, I see your hand up. Are you the second for the motion?
I am the second for the motion, Neil.
It's
Okay.
Adrian Raymond for the
It
note
is.
taker.
Yep, sorry, Adrian Raymond. Don Collins with the second. At this point, is there any discussion? And if you do have something you want to bring up, please raise your hand. Amy, please go ahead.
Hi, in the minutes, it has me from Wyndham Southwest Supervisory Union.
We should correct that.
Thank you, that's all.
And it should be Windsor Southeast.
Correct.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. So this is the first time we're going to do this. So for our panelists who are the voting delegates, if you approve of the motion, please use the raise hand feature and then leave it up so that our vote counters can get an accurate count, please.
And Neil, this is the motion to approve the minutes, correct?
It is.
They're still putting their hands up, so I'm
Okay,
waiting a little longer.
no worries.
We currently have 29 hands up. Now it went down to 28. I'm not quite sure why. Oh, okay, now we've got 30. You want to stop there, Neil?
Yep, so I'm going to call it there. We have 30 votes to approve the minutes. And then if I could have a staff member to lower all the hands, please. Okay, and all of those opposed, please raise your hand.
I don't see any hands up, Neil.
Okay, all right, then that motion passes and we have approved the minutes from the 2019 annual business meeting with the change related to Amy. All right, Very well done, gang. You're doing great with the voting so far. Moving on then to the President's report. The President's report is in your meeting packet. I hope you had a moment to read it. At this point in time, I will look for a motion to accept the President's report. And I see Lori Childers from Addison Northwest.
I'll make a motion to accept your President's report, Neil. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. It looks like Amy had her hand up first for the second. Is that correct, Amy?
That is correct.
All right, Amy McMullen, Windsor Southeast with the second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, then we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of accepting the President's report, please raise your hand in Zoom and leave it up so that our folks can get an accurate vote count.
We've got 32 hands up, Neil.
Okay. 32 in favor. And if I can have a staff member lower all the hands, please, and we'll go for. And then all of those opposed, please raise your hand.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Motion passes to accept the President's report. And then before we move off of the President's report tonight, I would like to take a moment to recognize Clarence Haynes, who is finishing up his year as the immediate past president of the VSBA. Clarence has been with the VSBA board for 8 years now, and his local board for almost 16 years. He's also served as a select board member and the chair, town justice, road foreman, planning commissioner, and town moderator. With a resume like that, I am pretty sure that if any of us drives through Middletown Springs, we are likely to come across something that Clarence has touched. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he's also the police chief and would gladly hand me a ticket on the way through town. I had the opportunity to really get to know Clarence since joining the VSBA board, and in particular after spending 12 hours in the car with him as we drove to and from the annual NSBA conference in Philadelphia a couple years ago. He cares deeply about the students and the school and his community. He's extremely knowledgeable about the role of a school board member, and he is an encyclopedia when it comes to Robert's Rules of Order. He has been a tremendous role model for me and my work as a school board member, and I would like to congratulate him on all of his accomplishments while on the VSBA board and thank him especially for his friendship, his guidance, and his support. Thank you very much, Clarence. For folks that can see on the screen, Clarence, we will be sending you a lovely VSBA apple as we are sharing on the screen right now. But I just wanted to say thank you so very much for all that you've done, Clarence. And Clarence, if you would like to make a comment, that would be a great time.
I noticed people clapping, Neil.
That is awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Clarence. Kathy, would you like to say something? See your hand up. I don't know if that was up from before. And you're muted still if you want to say something. Oops, hand goes down. Okay. All right, we are going to move on then to the executive director's report. As of all the other reports, the executive director's report is in your meeting packet. At this point, is there a motion to accept the executive director's report? Judy Murray from Orange East. Judy, if you could just unmute and then make your motion, that would be.
I motion to accept the executive director's report.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it looks like I have a second from Flora.
Second.
Second from Flora Diaz-Smith from Washington Central. Sue, was there anything that you would like to, highlight about the executive director's report at this point?
Thanks, Neil. I know we have a long meeting to get through, so I will just speak extremely briefly and say that this was my first executive director's report, and I have very much enjoyed my first year at the VSBA, getting to know so many school board members around the state, and have so much appreciation for all of your hard work and dedication during this COVID-19 pandemic. We are here to support you at the VSBA, and I encourage you to get in touch with me anytime. We're happy to hear from you and hear how we can best support you. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the executive director's report? Lori.
So I just wanted to say I was really appreciative, and our board was really appreciative of your resolution, of the staff's resolution on equity. And I was really glad to see the paragraph about equity, and I asked you about it in an email, and I'm looking forward to the work that's coming out of the VSBA as time goes on, because I think all of our boards have a lot of work to do in relation to equity and diversity and our understanding of it, because we don't have much of it, and I think we could all a whole heck of a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And you're right, it is something that we are actively working on right now. So you can anticipate to see some work from VSBA in that in the near future. Any other questions or comments? The executive director's report. Okay. Seeing none then, all those in favor of accepting the executive director's report, please raise your hand and leave them up so we can get a count.
We have 31 hands raised.
Ooh.
Sorry, 32.
I just saw that last one sneak in there. Okay, if we can lower all the hands then, we'll take the no votes. All of those opposed, please raise your hand.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, motion passes to accept the executive director's report. Thank you, Sue. We are going to move on then to the treasurer's report, which is also included in your meeting packet. And at this point, is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Jim Salzgiver from Bennington, Rutland.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Thank you. And Adrian Raymond from Mill River, are you the second?
I will second that.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion? Michael Inners.
I had a question on the collective bargaining supports. Is that exclusively the statewide health insurance commission?
I'm going to unmute, and I'm going to say that that particular line item is specific to that. In case there is anything I'm not thinking of, Sue or Carrie.
I can add a little bit more, Kim. It does include other types of supports that we offer school boards regarding collective bargaining. For instance, we're doing a webinar in December on our database that we have, our contract database. So it includes some things like that as well.
I believe we also did some trainings as the collective bargaining group was finished their work, the statewide bargaining commission, some educational work around that and had some support from attorneys for that.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yeah, it looks like it's about 25% of our budget I just sort of jumped out at me. So thank you.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, that as it's particular to the collective bargaining, it was in law that we do this and yet without funding to do so. So we've been grateful for the partnership and the support that we've had from VSBA to support this work as well.
Thank you, Kim. Lori, do you have a question?
Yes, I asked last year, we don't have a comparative balance sheet this year, and I was really hoping we might have
that. We actually tried to put it in, Lori. I was definitely channeling you yesterday when we were talking about this. And structurally in this format, it didn't, Carrie wasn't able to get it on the page. So we will be doing that. And if anybody would like to have us send them the balance sheet from 2019, we'll be doing that. All quarterly reports will include them running side by side. I believe this format for the book was more limiting for Carrie. And Carrie, if I'm misspeaking or representing, we talked about it, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, and she tried. So I didn't make sort of an opening statement. I'm grateful for the questions. I think that's the most important part. I think it's important to say that, as I did in the opening couple of paragraphs, our financial status is sound, and we, due to lesser expenses, as you can see in most cases, and due to the pandemic, the notes really articulate the areas where we came in less in terms of expenses than we expected, and that accounts for, we also had a $73,000 net income. But most importantly, of the work that happened around this was the budget that we put before the board in August, which was a 10-month budget, to get us in sync with our partners and most of the rest of the world on fiscal year ending June 30th. So we checked in with our auditor on how to go about doing that appropriately. And because our dues and our services are continuous and the dues cycle fell the same, whether it be a June 30th or an August 31st fiscal year, we continue to bill our members for 12 months. We budgeted for a carryover of 2 months worth of dues approximately. And that will bring us into a 12-month budget the following year. So I don't want to confuse the matter, but I want to let you know that that's probably the biggest piece of what's happening in the budget that's proposed that you see.
I did have one more question, Cam, real quick. Is there anything in the bylaws that talks about how we can invest the funds that we have, which essentially the $200,000 that we're setting aside for an emergency?
I don't have them up in front of me, and I'm not recalling.
Kim, I can address that if you want me to.
That would be, yes, Carrie,
Yes.
thank you.
I've been here for about 20 years, and the first 15 or so, we had the money invested in CDs. However, the interest rate went down so low for CDs that we have an account that it's in now that gets a higher interest than a CD does. And on an annual basis, I check that to make sure that, that we have it in the best possible interest-bearing account.
Thank you, Carrie. And I will also right now apologize to Kim. As the president, I was supposed to turn it over to Kim to give that little brief overview, and I failed to do that. So I am sorry, Kim. But I will move on now. Dan MacArthur has a question.
Yeah, it's actually on page 18 of the treasurer's report. A couple of questions under dues. 96%, but all dues have been paid. Just wondering about that. And it looks like from the end of that sentence, dues have been held steady for fiscal year 21. I assume that means that dues to the individual districts or SUs will not change.
So, yeah.
And do you want
I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead. Yeah.
And then the very next sentence, other income, maybe you just go through that. I would have thought that we would have gotten forgiveness of the PPP loan by now.
I don't believe that's come yet. And so on the instruction of our auditor, that's being held as liability until the forgiveness has come through. So it hasn't come through yet. And Carrie, you might be able to speak to, or Sue,
I can.
the conversations with.
I can. So there are a lot of questions there. How about, can I take one question at a time? So one of them was regarding the dues. 96% of what we anticipated receiving, we received for dues. There were 3 SUs that were not members. I believe 2 of them are members this year. So the dues for this year were based on our anticipated membership, as opposed to the ones that last year did not participate. So that's why it says that we've received everything we're expecting to receive from those dues from last year. And we do expect to receive the full amount of dues that we have listed for this year. What was another question? I'm sorry, there were a lot of them.
Yeah, thank you. Carrie, thank you. I want to just mention, Dan, what we do is set the amount of dues to be raised from the membership, the large number. The dues calculation is partially based on ADM and partially a flat rate. So we had a 3-year transition period. This is the first year that people are no longer in transition. So I don't think we can say with certainty, the amount being raised by dues is being held steady. The amount that each SU or district is being billed might be slightly different than the previous year, because in the previous year, they may have still been in their 3-year transition where their dues could either go up or down more than 30% each of those years, more than a third of what it would have been before. So it was a weird 3-year transition. We just have not raised dues during that 3-year period. It was our commitment. This coming budget also does not raise the amount of money to be collected from dues.
However, if the ADM changes in that school district, then their dues amount will change.
That's right.
Understood, right.
Okay, good, thank you. It's confusing, so it bears repeating, I'm sure, for everybody.
And the PPP loan has not yet been, we will receive a letter from the government saying that if we are released from it, that we're released from it. We have not yet received that. So our auditor has told us that until we receive that specific letter, it has to stay in a liability account.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
Back to Lori.
Oops.
You're still muted.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Oh, okay. Any other questions or comments related to the financial report? All right, seeing none, then I'll ask all of those in favor of adopting the financial report, please raise your hand and leave it up.
We have 30 hands raised.
Okay. Oh, I see 31 now.
Yes, 31 now.
Okay. It's all right. We're getting used to the technology. Okay, then if we could lower all the hands, we'll go for the no votes then. And then all those opposed.
There are no hands raised.
Okay. The motion passes, then we will accept the financial report.
Thank you, folks. I think I'm probably becoming an attendee now. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, right now.
Okay. Have we had any change in voting delegates as we move on to the resolutions now?
I'm just looking to see if Leon's here. I don't see him.
Okay. So remind me again, then the number would be 21.
Yes, it would be 21 votes to pass.
Okay. So we are going to then move on to the resolutions committee report. There are 10 proposed resolutions this year. They're numbered 1 through 9, but resolution 5 has an A and a B part to it. I would especially like to thank the boards that submitted these resolutions. We definitely appreciate the time and thought that you put into this process. We have had some confusion in past meetings when taking motions on resolutions that tried to account for the board's recommendation. So in an effort to try to achieve some simplicity on this in this evening's meeting, I'm going to recommend the following template. If a resolution is recommended by the board, the motion should be move that we adopt resolution number X. In this case, an affirmative vote of 60% or 21 voting delegates will pass the motion and will pass the resolution. If a resolution is not recommended by the board, I recommend that the language should be move that we do not adopt resolution number X. In this case, an affirmative vote of 60% or 21 voting delegates means that the resolution will not pass. I know we've gone a couple of different ways, but I'm hoping that that will make things a little bit easier for this evening. Looking ahead, resolution number 4 may get a little tricky since that has a recommendation of do not pass, but it also has an amendment from the same originating board that addresses the original concerns that led to the board's recommendation. When we get to that one, I'll provide some additional suggestions that will hopefully lead to a smooth vote. So moving on to resolution number 1. Resolution number 1 was submitted by the Burlington School District. The language of resolution 1 is be it resolved, the VSBA propose and promote to the Vermont legislature to update Title 16 to allow for school boards to remove and replace board officers after they are elected via a fair and judicious process. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution is a pass. As a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 1. With that, I will look to see if there is a motion. And I see Lori Childers, whose hand is up.
I move to adopt resolution proposal number 1 as written.
Thank you. That was from Lori Childers, Addison Northwest. Do we have a second? I'm looking at Aaron Knox from Essex Westford.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Aaron. And now time for discussion. Aaron, do you have, oh, no, I see that. Dan.
Yeah, so I was at the board meeting when we made these recommendations, but I was not on the resolutions committee. I am curious if anybody is from the Burlington School District could talk about exactly why this is here.
Sure, Burlington, if you are here. Michael Fisher, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks very much. The goal of this is to ensure that the that the laws can allow a board to have someone who's an officer they elected originally. If the officer does not represent the board, that they can remove them as an officer. They would stay on the board, but in Burlington, we had a chair do something that the rest of the board didn't like. Our bylaws policy did not allow for them to remove the chair. We put it in our policy, but our lawyer stated that Title 16 doesn't explicitly allow for it, so it could be challenged. So this is to get the law to say if a board chooses to allow for the officer to be removed, then it's legally permissible.
Thank you. Pam Fraser, Windsor Central.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I have some concerns about this one because it's not quite clear to me, and maybe it's just me, but what a board officer is. If it's the chair of the board, that's an elected position, so that's a concern. But if it's the chair of a committee or a committee member, if the board is displeased with some activity of some members on a committee, are you saying, I'm asking the Burlington representative here, are you saying that the idea is that they could be removed from a committee?
So it wasn't explicitly formulated to address committee chairs, but I want to go back to your question where you said a chair is elected. At least on our board, the chair is elected by other board members, not by the community, right? The community elects them to the board, and the board elects their own officer. So it is that if the board elects an officer, this would allow a board to allow themselves to say, that person does not represent us, and we remove them as the chair, and then the board selects a new chair. The statute states or implies that there's a year tenure for every board officer, but doesn't allow for the removal of such.
Thank you for that clarification. I still have a concern that the reasons for removal could be capricious and that the fair and judicious process is not defined. So I understand the reason for this resolution, but I have those concerns.
And it would be, and we discussed whether to get more specific, but we decided that each board decides on their own what is that fair and judicious process. So whether it's 60%, 75%, whatever it is, or they choose not to institute this in their policies or bylaws.
I guess my last comment about it would be, and I appreciate the back and forth, is just that the annual re-election by the board for those types of positions seems adequate to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Hang on, I'm going to go in the order here, and I've got Allison not up first.
Okay, thank you. So I too, kind of have some concerns about this. Our board, it has, the annual reorganization as in the statute here. And I see the point that you're coming from, but I think this could be a slippery slope if you say have a closely divided board and then you have a board member step down in the middle of the term or purposely, make some changes and shifts so that things could happen in that realm. That would just be my concern, that it gives people a lot of, some opportunity for nefarious play.
Dan MacArthur.
Yeah, so I guess I'm concerned also about a fair and judicious process as well. I guess I think if this were asking the legislature to define what that was, that would seem preferable to me. But if it just throws it back to the individual boards to make up their own, come up with their own fair and judicious process, I'm afraid we're, opening it up to little bits of chaos here and there. So I think you guys see what some of the concerns are here.
Thanks, Dan. Michael Inners?
Yeah, I support this resolution, and I'm a board chair myself. If I have lost the confidence of a majority of my board, I'd probably resign. But if I was so far out that they planned to remove me, I don't actually have a problem with that. So I think that boards should have the ability, when there's a board chair who is acting against the interests of the board. Now they're elected official, they stay on the school board, but they should no longer represent the board.
Thank you, Michael. Alice?
Yes, hello. Let me make sure I'm unmuted. Yes, I am. I have a concern about defaulting to the state for something that should be covered in local board policy.
If I'm to understand this correctly, the reason that we're entertaining this is because it was unclear as to whether or not this would be allowed at the local level. And so I think what we're looking for here, or at least what Burlington was looking for, was clarification in 16 VSA that would enable local school boards to enact this if they so desired.
This would not put any decision-making authority at the legislature, either to define what that process is or to actually make a change in board officers.
Are there any other comments or questions on resolution number 1? Yeah, go ahead, Clarence.
I have a problem with the fair and judicious process when you're asking the legislature to put something in law that even that allows us to. I think the resolution needs to be more specific in what you're asking the legislature to do, because I can see this as a real can of worms. We have the annual reorganization that takes into consideration when there are changes in the complexity of the board. So I think that's taken care of. Asking the legislature to be able to authorize the boards to do it interim throughout the year. You get someone that resigns from the board for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden the balance is changed and they can basically recall a chair, take it away for no particular reason other than they may differ politically. I think that's a slippery slope that I don't want to head down. Vote them out of office the next annual meeting. That's what it's there for. And until then, just vote against them.
Okay, thank you, Clarence. I see that Kim Gleason, you are allowed to talk.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak in support of this resolution. I think the fact that it is not laid out specifically what that process is, I think could be spoken to in policy. The fact that it's possible you could speak to it in policy currently and have it not have clarity in support in Title 16 is a bigger problem for me. So if you were to have a chair not representing or even changing their position during the course of a year, I think there may in fact be a greater risk to having an officer representing or that no longer is representing the interests of the board. So I don't think this necessitates that there be this in every board's practice, but I think it allows for it to happen should it need to. I don't think chairs take the responsibility lightly when they agree to do it. And I don't think boards would take lightly a change in their leadership over the course of a year. But if there's no capacity for doing it when it's necessary, or questions in the law regarding it, I think that's problematic. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Is there any other discussion on this resolution? And just as a reminder, if you want to talk, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Michael.
So I thank to everybody, and I do understand the concerns about this and maybe the nebulous language. But I also was talking with somebody about their experience on a board in another state. And what they highlighted to me was the chair especially is a unique position. It's not just about their political position. It's they are the organizer of the board's activities. And so they had a situation where their board chair made it very difficult for the board to meet and set agendas, and it really impeded the work of the board. And so that's one of the drivers of this. So I would just ask you to keep that in mind. It's not just what the board, what the chair or officers think, but really how the board operates. Thank you.
Okay, Allison, please.
So, and just on that topic, we kind of had a problem last spring as well when COVID started and our then chair refused to meet. So, but we do have in our bylaws that a simple majority of the board can demand a meeting and preside over a meeting if the chair is not willing. So that's another way to maybe consider some of those issues.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this resolution? I do want to note that it looks like we've got one more voting delegate who has joined us. Is that correct, Sue?
Yes, we do.
Leon? That is Leon.
Yes. And Neil, we have a phone number in the panelists that we don't recognize. Could we inquire about that, please?
Yes. 802-244, 802-447-0094. You are allowed to talk right now. Could you just let us know who this is? I think you've got to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you, Leon.
Okay, well, I can cut my phone off. I had both on because I couldn't tell whether I was able to talk through the webinar.
Oh, okay. So that phone number, the 0094, that's you?
That's me. So I'm going to cut off right now.
Okie dokie. Awesome. So Sue, does that change our threshold to 22 votes for passage?
I've now got a count of 37, so I just want to verify that.
Okay.
Could you give me a moment?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Don Collins, you have a question while Sue's doing some verification? And maybe not. Or maybe he does. Don, man, you're busy with the hand there, Don. You're up, you're down. If you got something you want to say, go ahead. But you got to unmute first. Still muted, Don, if you want to say something.
Lips are moving, but he's not.
The lips are going, but there's no sound.
I'm all set, Neil. I lost my contact, so when I came back on, I just raised my hand on chance you had called for a vote while I'd lost my connection.
Okay, so I'm going to lower your hand right now because we haven't actually called for the vote just yet.
All right, that's good.
So Neil, we currently have 37 delegates here.
Okay.
And I'm just going to do my calculation.
23.
23. Yes, we need 23.
Okay. So if there is no more further discussion on resolution 1, then I'm going to call for a vote at this point in time. All those in favor of the motion to adopt resolution number 1, please raise your hand and then leave it up so we can get a count.
Sorry, just a quick note. I see some people physically raising their hand. You're asking them to use the raise hand button. Is that correct?
We are, yes. Please use the little blue raise hand button in Zoom. That's what we're using to get the counts.
So
I want to make sure every vote counts.
Yes. So we currently have 24 hands raised in Zoom, and I believe there was one person who did not want to raise their hand in Zoom. They wanted us to count their hand on the screen. So now there's 25 hands raised in Zoom.
Okay.
Do you want me to check this across the screen and see if there are hands physically raised?
I would, we have just one attendee that, is there a reason why the attendee can't use the raise hand feature, or just a
that may have been me, and I'm having some technical difficulties, which I figured out.
Okay, yep. So I see your hand raised right now.
So we have 25 hands raised.
Okay. If I can ask staff to then lower all of the hands, and we'll take the no votes. All right. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand.
There are 10 hands raised.
I'm having trouble getting that blue button.
Okay, it went 9, 10, and then back to 9.
So I'm just going to raise my hand over here because I can't get the blue button. So.
All right, so 10 opposed, Neil.
Okay. Thank you. So then that motion passes.
I'm going to abstain, Neil, at 1 abstention. Dan MacArthur.
Okay. Moving on then to resolution number 2, which was submitted by the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union. The language of resolution 2 is, be it resolved that providing universal access to high-speed broadband services for every student and family in Vermont must be a goal of the highest order for the government of the state of Vermont. And where access to such broadband services is available but cannot be reasonably afforded by families with students in our schools, that some form of financial support should be made available to those families, although not as an additional unfunded cost to the school districts, to ensure that the students in those families have the high-speed broadband service necessary to support their education. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 2 is a pass. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 2. With that, I would look for a motion. And if you can raise your hand, that would be great. Edie, please. Mount Mansfield.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2 as written.
Thank you. And James Payton, Kingdom East, are you the second for this?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. With that, do we have any discussion on resolution number 2? All right, not seeing any hands. Then all of those in favor of the motion to adopt resolution number 2, please raise your hand and leave it up so we can get a count.
We have 31 hands raised.
Thank you. So why don't we go ahead and we'll lower all of those hands. And with that, then I will look for all of those opposed to this resolution.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, resolution number 2 passes. Thank you, board. Moving on then to resolution number 3, which was submitted by the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District. The language of resolution 3 is, be it resolved, Vermont's pre-K-12 students should be held harmless from reductions to the education funds available to school districts. Vermont school districts should be given the necessary resources to operate their schools in a safe manner during a declared state of emergency in Vermont. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 3 is pass. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 3. And with that, I will look for a raised hand and a motion. And I see Tara Sweet from Franklin West.
So move to pass resolution 3.
Thank you, Tara. Do we have a second? Jim Salzgiver, Bennington Rutland, are you the second?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Jim, do you also want to discuss? Oh, hand just went down. All right.
Neil?
Yes, Clarence.
When you have the resolution up on the shared screen, I don't have the raise hand function on the side anymore. It takes away my screen place to vote when the resolution, when I currently have Susan's shared screen.
Okay. If that is the case, then I wonder if just prior to when we call for the vote, if we can just stop the screen share, would that make things easier?
Yes, that works.
Ah, okay.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Any other discussion on this motion for resolution number 3? All right, Clarence, I'm going to lower your hand because I'm going to call. Don, do you have a? Or are you just getting ready to vote? Okay, it seems like folks are ready to vote, so I am going to call the question. All those in favor of resolution number 3, please raise your hand. We'll leave them up.
There are 34 hands raised.
Manually.
35 with Leon.
Okay. And did we lower them all already?
Yes, Neil, they're lowered.
Okay.
I see a hand. I see Elizabeth Fitzgerald's hand.
Elizabeth, do you have a question or comment, or are you voting?
No, I think I just was making sure the vote counted.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lower the hand, or you did it already, and I'm going to ask for all those opposed.
I do not see any hands.
Okay, resolution number 3 is adopted. Okay, moving on to resolution number 4, which was submitted by the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District. The language of resolution number 4 is, be it resolved, a study should be conducted to better understand the variety of CTE governing models and budgeting structures that exist across the state, The study would recommend changes to enable all school districts, regardless of hosting a CTE or not, to have shared representative governance over the operation and budgeting of the CTE schools in their region. The VSBA board's recommendation for Resolution 4 was do not pass due to concerns that the resolution states a predetermined outcome for the proposed study. The Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District Board submitted an amendment in order to address those concerns. The amendment strikes the original language and replaces it with the following. Be it resolved, a study should be conducted to better understand the variety of CTE governing models, operations, and budgeting structures that exist across the state. The study would examine any inconsistencies that impact student learning and outcomes, in addition to the ways that host districts and sending districts have a voice in the governance and operations of the CTE. Given the unique nature of this resolution and its amendment, I believe an appropriate motion would be to adopt resolution number 4. And since we already have an amendment, I'd like a motion to adopt the amendment right after the motion, and obviously a second to adopt the resolution. So with that, is there a motion to adopt resolution number 4 and a second? Leon. Oop, not anymore. Pam, I'll turn to you.
Motion to adopt amendment number 4.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes, it is. I know this is going to get a little confusing with this one, but that is, I think, the right motion to make. Leon, would you like to second that? See your hand raised. I will take that as a yes.
Point of order, Neil.
Hang on one second, Dan. I just want to see. Leon, were you the second? Just give me a high sign if you were the second. Okay. Dan.
I believe that what you had asked for was a motion to approve proposal number 4 and then amend it. I don't think we can approve an amendment until the original proposal has been brought to the floor.
Yeah, so what we just did, Dan, and I think it might have been a little confusing, I just asked for a motion on the resolution and we just got a second. Now what I want to do right now is I want a motion to adopt a motion for the amendment.
I think if you look at the wording of the motion that was made, it mentions the amendment.
Is our note taker available to tell what the language for the motion was? Because I was pretty sure, Dan, that I thought that the motion was to approve resolution number 4.
Said amendment 4.
Oh, sorry.
I said it was amendment 4. That was wrong.
All right, one second. Maybe a little parliamentary help here. Sue, can we just have the original motion maker, if they're willing to withdraw the motion?
Yes, they can withdraw the motion.
Okay. And would that be okay with you? Would
yes.
You okay. And if you would be willing to then make a similar motion, but for the original resolution, that would be great. And I would, I know that this is confusing, but I would recommend a motion that we pass resolution number 4.
Motion to pass resolution 4.
Okay. Do we have a second? Both Dan and Leon are there with the second. So we are all set there. Now, I would like a motion for the amendment. Motion to approve the amendment.
Sorry, who was the second? You said there were 2 people, but who?
Let's go with Dan MacArthur.
Okay, Dan MacArthur, and what's his SU?
Wyndham Central.
Wyndham Central. Thank you. When you make your motions, please give your SU and your name.
Thank you. My apologies, Carrie. All right, Dave Sharp, please.
I move the amendment as described to us.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
That's Dave Sharp of Mount Abraham.
And Don Collins, are you the second on that motion? You're talking in the mute there, Don. How about I do this? Floor, are you the second?
Yes, I would like to second that.
Okay, thank you.
Or from
All right.
Washington Central.
So we've got the resolution. We now have the amendment on the floor for discussion. Is there anybody that would like to speak to the amendment? Don.
Yes, I would like to speak to the amendment. I was trying to get in a little early and I didn't really want to second it. I just wanted to speak to it. Yeah, the people at Mount Mansfield Unified District worked very closely with Sandra Cameron and myself on making a revision. What happened was our timeline came, I think, the day before their board meeting. So in all fairness to them, if we had not had our deadline as we had set it and wanted to stay with it, they would have been under the wire, but they stayed with their regular meeting and we stayed with our deadline. So this information did come through promptly for the revision. I wholeheartedly support the revision and thank them for the process.
Thank you, Don. Lori Childers.
I'm a little concerned because we had, for me, myself, we had a discussion at our board level about this, specifically about this resolution, and our board agreed that I was to vote do not pass, but we didn't have the amendment, so I'm feeling a little like, you know, I don't have the authority.
Okay.
Neil, I could just provide the information that this could happen at a normal meeting. There could be amendments proposed even from the floor. So there is a certain amount of authority that is given to a voting delegate to vote as they see fit.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Bob Flint, River Valley.
Just two quick comments. Since I believe VSBA is recommending the amendment pass, you haven't been clear about that, but I'm preferring that. So Act 189 sort of covered this already. So in 2018, the legislature passed Act 189, which created a study commission. 2 pilot sites were chosen from an RFP process to look at funding and governance. Bill Talbot was brought out of retirement to do some work on this. And there was a report that was issued to AOE. The problem was AOE never issued it to the legislature, as was, I believe, recommended for January of this year. So I've seen the draft report. It does speak to funding and access. Unfortunate AOE's chosen not to share it. Secondly, we're one of the 3 independent school districts that have regional representation, and it's worked wonderfully. We have buy-in from the sending districts. Their votes are weighted. The budgets are voted on by the residents of the region it serves. And it has been a positive, and I would encourage others to look at that around the state. Thank you.
Bob, I see Kim. You are allowed to talk now.
I was just gonna say to Lori, we had the opportunity, I guess, with our timeline to see that the amendment was already at the VSBA website. So our board also spoke to that idea that basically the spirit of our conversation, should amendments or items come up past our time to consider it at a board meeting, that our voting delegate would have the authority to vote in the spirit of the conversation. I think that's the best you can do, because at our meetings you would have that if we were in person too. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Edie.
Hi, thanks. So I'm thrilled to hear that there are tech centers that are working really well with the sending and the center itself. The districts are working well. We are a sending district. We send to 2 different tech centers. We have minimal representation at both of those schools. And if there was a way to make it, you know, if it's the AOE that's the holdup and the VSBA can promote that moving forward, that would be fantastic. But I think that something should be done so that all schools and all students at those schools have the same opportunities, which is why we're doing what we're doing, is to give students more opportunity. So glad to hear there's a model that's really working well, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment, Lori?
So this existing study that's been done and is being held by the AOE for not published, would that address this amendment? Would that take the place of the study that this amendment is requesting?
Bob, I'll let you go.
Yeah, partially. I mean, it proposed pilots for funding, because ultimately this is about money, right? I mean, yes, it's representation, but it's about money and access. So the study purports to create ways of doing some pilot and creative funding to increase access to tech ed. It did not get into governance, it sort of touched on it.
Sorry, Edie, are you, sorry, Lori, did you have another follow-up or?
Yeah, sorry. So Representative Edie, hi. One of the things we talked about at the resolution, in the resolution committee was that there is already an existing law that was how the Patricia Hannaford Career Center in Addison County was created. And I wondered if your board has thought about doing that, or is that not a viable option? It was Don Collins that was telling us about this, and he was the superintendent at the time that the Career Center was created, and the governance structure that we chose was one of the three that are independent, and we have representation on that board, and the budget is voted on by our citizens. So maybe Don and Edie could help.
Yeah, well, why don't I'll turn it over to Edie first, and then I'll go to Don.
Yeah, so I am not aware of something that is currently in existence that's going to solve this problem. And if there's a study at the AOE that is not published, that's something that we're not aware of that. I just wanted to address that this is not just about money. This is about programming as well. If you are the school in our area that hosts, you choose all the programming, and the sending bodies do not have a say in that. There's a regional advisory board that has been mostly defunct. So to be an advisor, to not have a say, to not, also there's money, right? To not have a say in the budget. And we are a big sender. I think that's not okay. It's not okay for students. It's not okay for a state that wants to have good technology for education for all of the students in the state.
Thank you. Don.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I hope I am.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so I'm aware of Bill Talbot's work. Talked with him when he was doing it. Bob Flint is right on target with what he said. When Mount Mansfield proposed their first amendment, and Sandra and I talked with them, I did not mention the study or Bill Talbot, but did encourage them to rewrite it in a manner which is now somewhat come forth. I think this process has been going on for nearly 20 years. I know when I chaired Senate Education 16 years ago, we had a discussion. I think this resolution is a good one, and it's just one more push, one more support to say to the legislature something needs to happen. This resolution might even get a legislator ask the Secretary of Education what happened to that report and why haven't we heard about it. So I think the resolution, as Bob had said, partially, and I think partially has happened, but we need to keep it moving. And this resolution, in my opinion, does. So thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Don. Any further discussion on the amendment? William Mathis, you're up to talk.
Couple of things. The first is mystery studies are a bit of a mystery to me, and why we should be contemplating something that's not out in the public domain is a question to be raised. And the second thing is that this should be protected under equal rights, should it not? In other words, is this a matter for the courts?
While it could be, I think the focus of this evening's discussion is determining what priority it is of the VSBA. And I would imagine that there are several avenues that we could pursue if we do decide as an organization this is something that we want to get behind. And so I think that would be, you know, one of a possible several options that we've got to pursue this. Are there any other discussions on this, on the amendment now? Okay, so seeing none at the moment, I am going to call for a vote, and this is a vote on the amendment, vote in adoption of the amendment right now. So please raise your hand and leave them up so we can get a count.
I see 29 hands. I see 32 hands.
I was going to say they keep going up, Sue.
Yes, 32.
So I see 32 at the moment. Okay. If we can lower all those hands. And now I'll look for any opposed to the amendment.
There are 2 hands raised.
Okay. All right. So the amendment passes, and now we need to vote on the resolution as amended. So just as a refresher, we did have a motion to adopt resolution number 4, and it was seconded. Is there any further discussion now on the amended resolution? Okay. Seeing none, then all those in favor of adopting resolution number 4, please raise your hand and leave them up so we can get a count.
There are 28 hands raised.
Okay, let's lower those hands. And then all of those opposed to the resolution as amended.
There are 4 hands raised.
Okay. So I am, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, but I think that means that the resolution has passed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. We are going to
amended.
Sorry. Going to move along.
I have
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
parliamentary inquiry at this point, which may turn to a point of order, but I just want to ask.
Yep, go ahead.
Should I raise the chat? But was told I need to bring it up here. I would recommend. I'm concerned about the the motion to reject sort of style, because I believe, and I'm going to ask what the question would be: if 60% of the people don't vote to reject it, have we rejected the motion?
If 60% of the people don't vote to reject it, the motion has not passed.
Right. So I think that's actually. This is why Roberts recommends strongly against negative formulation of motions. It doesn't prohibit it, but it does recommend pretty strongly against it. My interpretation of our rules is that you need 60% in favor of adopting the resolution for it to be adopted.
Yeah, we did. I struggled with this a little bit, Michael, to try to make sure that we are having these things sort of presented appropriately. Can we, while I don't disagree with you, can I just have a brief minute to consult with Sue on this, and then we can get right back to you?
Certainly, I guess I'll just say my personal recommendation, which of course you don't have to take, but is that we do the resolution in a positive form, and then if 60% don't vote for it, it hasn't been adopted, and we move on.
Right.
The last time we had a situation where the body was roughly equally split, and we went back and forth. There was 160% to reject or adopt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a couple of other questions that have come in, so let me go to those. And Michael Fisher, you want to go ahead?
I was just going to speak in support of this. I believe that we should vote on the motion, not on the recommendation.
Okay. Angela.
I agree with both, or with both people. It's very confusing the other way. I would rather keep it simple. Either you're for it or you're against it, and just leave it easy.
Okay. Kim, you are allowed to talk now.
Well, first of all, that pup is adorable. And then, sorry, Angela. But I thought I understood in the instructions, and it was what I understood of the way we were doing this, that we were voting the resolutions up or down. We were not voting on the recommendation. The recommendations are there for additional information. So I think that is how you had described that we would be doing it, Neil.
Yep, I did, but I also acknowledge that there was confusion around how I said that.
Okay.
So I don't want to make yes.
I thought you were clear as mud.
Well, thank you very much. I am going to, if folks can allow me just a brief moment, I do want to just confer with Sue just to make sure that we haven't forgotten anything on this. And Sue, would you just be able to give me a quick call on the home number? And we'll be right back shortly, folks. All right, we're back after a quick sidebar conference. Talk with Sue, and I will agree with those that think that the way that we should proceed with this is that the motion for all of the resolutions would be to adopt the resolution. And if the resolution fails to get the 60% vote or 22 votes, then it will not pass. All right. So with that, let me see, we were on resolution number 5A. And 5A was submitted by the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District. The language of resolution 5A is, be it resolved, state statutes and regulations should be reviewed and amended to provide school districts with greater flexibility to delegate responsibilities to their superintendents. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution 5A was do not pass. As we just discussed, the preferred motion language would be to adopt resolution 5A, and just so that folks know, then the failure to garner 60% vote on that would mean that it would not pass. So with that, I see Dan with his hand up. Dan, do you have a motion for us?
I do, although I want to make it clear that I do not support this resolution, but I'm going to make a motion that we adopt it.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adopt from Dan MacArthur from Wyndham Central. Do we have a second? Pam, are you the second?
Second the motion.
Okay, Pam Frazier from Windsor Central with the second. Is there any discussion? All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, so just as a refresher, folks, if you do not want this resolution to pass, do not vote in favor of it. All right, all those in favor of adopting Resolution 5A, please raise your hand and leave it up.
I see 2 hands raised, Neil.
Okay, thank you. So let's lower those hands. And then I will look for all of those opposed to adopting this resolution. Please raise your hand.
There are 31 hands raised.
Okay. Thank you. Motion 5A does not pass then. I see a couple of hands up. Leon, did you have a point?
Trying to get it down. It keeps acting funny with that hand.
All right. We'll just count you as a very friendly person. All right. Moving on then to resolution number 5B. Resolution 5B was also submitted by the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District Board. The language of Resolution 5B is, be it resolved, State Statute 17 VSA 2680 should be amended to provide school districts with the option to engage voters directly with Australian ballot questions without first conducting a district meeting in order to make a decision by Australian ballot. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 5B is a pass. And as a reminder, the preferred language would be moved that we adopt resolution number 5B. With that, I will look for a hand and a motion. Don. Can you unmute Don if you want to make that motion?
I'll move, Neil. This is Lori Childers, Addison Northwest. I'll move to adopt the resolution number 5B as written.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Dan, I see your hand up. Are you the second for this?
Dan MacArthur, Wyndham Central, I second it.
Okay, thank you very much. And anyone would like to speak to this? Any discussion on the motion? Don, you still have your hand up.
I believe that we had a good discussion with Mount Mansfield Unified District on this issue. Also talks with other boards, and I just want to speak in support of 5B.
Thank you, Don. Edie.
So I just wanted to make it really clear. I know it's a long meeting, but I just want to make it really clear why we're doing this. As our district gets larger, we find that having meetings in one school or another really disenfranchises some voters to force them to meet in person. We have one of the largest space districts, from end to end, it's almost an hour-and-a-half drive. And so we find that if we can't have people voting Australian ballot, we do not have voter input on items. And I think that it's really important, as our state has changed, to be able to make this change as well.
Thank you. Any other comments and discussion of this resolution? All right, not seeing any then. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 5B, please raise your hand.
I see 30 hands raised. Neil?
Thank you, Sue. All those opposed? see 2 hands, Sue. Does that match what you see?
Yes.
Okay. So the resolution passes. Moving on then to resolution number 6. Resolution number 6 was submitted by the Blue Mountain Union School District Board. The language of resolution 6 is, be it resolved, the VSBA urges the General Assembly to expand funding support to local schools to increase the availability of mental health counseling, emotional wellness, and psychological supports to students as Vermont schools return to class during the COVID-19 pandemic and its aftermath. These efforts will further support schools meeting Vermont's Agency of Education's education quality standards, specifically healthy and safe schools, through the whole school, whole community, whole child models domains 4 and 7. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 6 is pass. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 6. With that, I will look for a motion, and I see Lori Childers' hand is up.
Lori Childers, Addison Northwest. I move to adopt resolution proposal number 6 as written.
Thank you. Amy McMullen, are you the second?
Yes, Amy McMullen from Windsor Southeast. I second that motion.
Thank you, Amy. And is there any discussion on the resolution? Lori, is your hand still up from before, or did you want to talk to it? Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any hands at the moment.
Neil,
so
could I let you know about something?
You absolutely can.
Thank you. There was a request from the attendees that we read off the who's voting in favor of and opposed to each resolution because they cannot see that.
Okay. And is that something that you or another VSBA staff person could do?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay. All right. If there are no other folks needing discussion on this, then we will call the question. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 6, please raise your hand and then leave them up this time, just long enough so that we can read out the votes. And I'm guessing, Sue, it's probably just most appropriate to just read it out by the school district name rather than the
Yes.
individual.
So I have 33 hands raised. We've got Southwest Vermont SU, Essex Westford, Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union, Missisquoi Valley, SAU 70, Orange East, South Burlington, Franklin West, Caledonia Central, Hartford, Wyndham Central, Kingdom East, Franklin Northeast, Mount Abe, Greater Rutland, Mill River, Milton, Grand Isle, Rutland City, Rutland Northeast, River Valley, Addison Northwest, Burlington, Lamoille South, Windsor Central, Windsor Southeast, Mount Anthony, Mount Mansfield, Washington Central, Maple Run, Barry, Champlain Valley, St. Johnsbury, White River Valley.
Okay, thank you. Let's lower those. And all of those opposed.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then to resolution number 7. The resolution number 7 was actually submitted by the VSBA's resolution committee. The language of resolution number 7 is, be it resolved, the VSBA should demonstrate and promote the unequivocal collective responsibility for equitable and inclusive education environments by recognizing, responding, and speaking out against injustice and racial inequity. In support of this goal, the VSBA commits to the following. 1, promote and support implicit bias training for all faculty and staff in Vermont public schools, including athletic and co-curricular personnel, and officials across the state, see H 714 of 2020, and 2, promote professional learning for school leaders and school board members that include, but not be limited to, equity literacy, curriculum audits, review protocols for examining bias in school policies and procedures, culturally responsive instruction and school culture, student leadership and voice, and examining power and privilege in schools. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 7 is a pass. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 7. Amy McMullen, I see your hand is up.
I move that we adopt resolution number 7 as written.
Thank you, Amy. And Edie, do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Edie Grenning from Mount Mansfield with the second. Is there any discussion? Don Collins?
Neil, I want to thank Sue and Sandy and Susan and Carrie and all the other friends of ours and other organizations who worked on this. This was a fair amount of work to bring it together, and with Sue's leadership, it came out to the Resolutions Committee as something that not only did we support, but our staff really felt it was important.
Thank you, Don. Lori Childers?
I want to echo what Don says. This was super important that you guys did this. I'm really glad you did it. The initiative was, from my perspective anyway, completely yours. And I want to throw out this something that we've been doing a lot of policy review. And one of the things I keep throwing out to our policy committee is that we really ought to start using the term they instead of she and he. And I would like to encourage the VSBA to do the same in future.
Thank you, Lori. Leon?
I in agreement with this amendment, and I just wanted to make sure to say that I'm glad that we want to do this as a whole board for the whole state, and put everybody on the same page so that we can try to move forward in the areas that we're lacking at in this particular area. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any other comments or discussion on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, then all those in favor of passing resolution number 7, please raise your hand and leave it up so that we can get a count and also call out the tally.
So I see 35 hands raised. We have Addison Northwest, SAU 70, Essex Westford, Bennington Rutland, Missisquoi Valley, Mount Mansfield, Hartford, Windsor Central, Mill River, Rutland City, Rutland Northeast, Mount Abe, Champlain Valley, Lamoille South, Orange East, Windsor Southeast, Caledonia Central, Grand Isle, Wyndham Central, Franklin Northeast, Washington Central, Southwest Vermont SU, Milton, White River Valley, Greater Rutland County SU, Mount Anthony, South Burlington, Kingdom East, Franklin West, North Country SU, Burlington, Barry, River Valley, St. Johnsbury, and Maple Run.
Thank you, Sue. We'll lower the hands. Any opposed?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Resolution passes. Moving on then to resolution number 8. Resolution number 8 was submitted by the Champlain Valley School District Board. The language of resolution 8 is, be it resolved, for those entering or currently enrolled high school students whose fixed permanent legal residence changes to a different fixed permanent legal residence and who wish to remain in their current district, the General Assembly should provide an additional mechanism beyond 16 VSA 822 to allow for students to complete their secondary education within the district where they were registered during any year in grades 8 through 11. This mechanism should provide a process by which the current district retains the student in their ADM count versus transferring the ADM to the new district of legal residence. Nothing in this mechanism shall apply to students eligible for homeless status who are protected under law. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 8 is to pass. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 8. With that, I will look for a hand and a motion. And Leon. I think you're muted, sir, though.
Am I there?
I got you now.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion to adopt this resolution, because I think it's really something that we really need to follow through in place and have for the whole school district as a whole.
Thank you. So Leon Johnson, Mount Anthony, with the motion to adopt. Jim Salzgiver, are you the second?
Yes, I'd like to second the motion for resolution number 8.
Okay, Jim Salzgiver, Bennington, Rutland with the second. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Elizabeth Fitzgerald. And you just need to unmute. Oh, I see she put her hand down. I guess I'm going to go to Michael Inners then.
Yeah, I support this resolution fairly strongly. And actually, I know it's too late to do anything about it, but I would actually like to see us also allow for students who move during a year who are below 8th grade to at least complete the year in the school they're in. That comes up fairly often up here. And unfortunately, the only way to do that is to pay tuition, which is something we usually have to deny, although it's, I think, educationally much better. So I support this resolution.
Thank you, Michael. Adrian.
I would like to support this resolution because I support the concept. I do have trouble with the fact that there's nothing in the resolution that addresses special education costs for a student, which could be substantial and could leave a district where a student doesn't live in the district and has significant cost that really should at least be shared, if not paid, by the district that the child's family moved into. So I support the concept. I have supported in the past, kids staying in our schools when their families have moved mid-school, but a wholesale, you get to stay without any kind of concept about sharing those kind of costs, I can't support.
Thank you, Adrian. Richard Franz?
Yeah, I agree with Adrian, except with the addition of transportation issues connected with this. I believe that special ed costs are a major part of this consideration. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Lynn? Oh, you're talking into mute though, Lynn.
I'm looking for a little clarification on the special education costs, because actually our district would still be bearing that cost. If we had a student that moved out of district, what we're asking is to keep the student in our district and keep them in our ADM count. So it actually would cost the town where the student has moved to, it wouldn't cost them really anything. So I guess I would just like a little more clarification on the concern around special education.
Okay.
Do you want me to address that, Neil?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I'm not sure I understand exactly what the last speaker said. If you have a student who has moved from school to school and you are saying that they can stay in the school that they have just left, without addressing the fact that the town that their family moved to should be picking up those costs, I think you leave open a huge hole. And unless it's addressed in the resolution, I don't understand how you wouldn't end up with a town that had a student in their schools could have had significant costs and had no legal way of recouping that money from the town where the student actually resided.
I guess, so the student would stay in the school that they had been in since K-8. The district would have been absorbing all of those costs all along, and all we're asking for is to continue to count that student in our ADM instead of having them go to another town. So it's actually our district that would be, or the district that the student had been in would be absorbing those special education costs. They wouldn't be transferred to the town where the student now resides in.
Well, I understand that, but perhaps your townspeople would not say, if you had a student that cost $200,000, that carte blanche, that's what they wanted to pay. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I see. You're looking at it from
yeah, I mean, it might, I'm just saying that it should be addressed. Maybe the state should pick it up. I don't think kids should be moved district to district. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to address those concepts because special education costs can be huge.
Right.
I understand. I understand.
Thanks. David. I think you're talking to mute though, David. Oop, did we just lose him completely?
No.
All right, why don't I go to Michael Meiners?
Yeah, I certainly understand the issue with special education costs. And it would be an issue that needs to be perhaps addressed to flesh it out. But the bulk of the issue is dealt with, I think, by retaining the ADM, given how all of the funding formulas now depend on per student. And that it will include special education reimbursement shortly, assuming that Act 173 goes into effect as currently rescheduled. So a lot of it, at least, I think, is dealt with by retaining the ADM at the district where the student actually attends.
Bill Mathis, whoops. You are allowed to talk.
Yes. For those people who worry about state aid formulas being incomprehensible, think of the discussion we're having here, and we're adding more and more complexity to it. Just need to be aware of that.
Thank you. David, you're allowed to talk, and I think you got switched over to the wrong role here too, possibly, yeah?
Oh, that could have been. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Good. I'm speaking against the motion. Our board spent considerable time discussing this issue. And in as much as we agree to the spirit in which it was offered, that students would have an opportunity to complete at least the
Unfortunately, I think we just lost him. I don't know if he was getting promoted to a panelist and we somehow lost him that way.
Am I back again?
Oh, you're back. Go ahead. We lost you in the middle there.
Our board supports the concept and spirit, but we felt that there were an uncomfortable number of ambiguities. Does it mean that a student who was a member of our school district in 8th grade then continues through the remainder of his or her educational career? And if so, what are the financial liabilities, in other words, special education costs and so forth, that attend that? We have had a number of people who tuition in from a nearby district that has school choice. Does that mean if the family were to move, however, temporarily to one of our districts, then we would assume the costs for those students who were formerly tuitioned in? We feel that these are questions for which the answers haven't been completely explored to a depth that we feel would warrant support of this resolution.
Thank you, David. Dan MacArthur.
Yes, thanks. I want to speak in favor of this resolution. This may seem like anathema here, but I have some faith in the legislature. Basically, this resolution is asking them to resolve this. Now, I completely agree that there are fuzzy issues, perhaps lack of clarity, but I believe that if the sense of this board tonight goes through with this resolution, that the legislature would understand what it is we're talking about and could deal with it.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? Don Collins? You're muted though, Don.
Okay, there we go. I want to speak in support of this resolution. I understand the whole issue around special ed, having lived with it for many years. The state is a partner, whether the student stays or go. The special ed costs, the state does have a significant role in that. I also want to say, and Dave Sharp, if he's on, hopefully he'll agree with me, you never give the legislature the final product. And I think this is a step in the right direction. And I'm sure through testimony, the whole issue of special ed costs will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Kim Gleason, you can talk.
I think it's maybe just a question for Lynn, because I don't think this occurred to us as a board when we talked about it in Essex Westford. Did the question of transportation come up, and that this may not be available to students who didn't have either the family support or the capacity to transport themselves? Did the equity issue come up at all?
The piece about transportation didn't really play a factor, only because we don't, when we have our high school choice, we don't provide transportation to students who want to come to CVU. They're responsible for providing their own transportation. So I think we thought of it along the same lines as that.
Got it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this resolution? Okay, not seeing any hands at the moment, so we will call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 8, please raise your hand.
I see 22 hands raised. I believe we need 23, Neil, with 37 voting delegates.
Sue, I don't think we still have 37 voting delegates on the call.
Okay, how many do we have, Susan?
One moment, please. There are a total of 40 panelists, and there are 6 of us on the call who are not voting. So that would be 34. Which would mean 21 would be 60%.
Okay, I will read off the 22 votes. It's in favor. It's Addison Northwest, Missisquoi Valley, Bennington Rutland SU, SAU 70, Mount Mansfield, Hartford, Caledonia Central, Windsor Central, Maple Run, Wyndham Central, Champlain Valley, Milton, River Valley Tech, White River Valley, Washington Central, Mount Anthony, Southwest Vermont SU, Burlington, Grand Isle, Rutland City, Essex Westford, and Windsor Southeast.
Okay, thank you. All hands are down. All of those opposed.
We have 11 hands raised. I gotta go back just a moment. I will tell you 11. It's Lamoille South, North Country SU, South Burlington, Rutland Northeast, Kingdom East, Orange East, Mill River, Greater Rutland County, Franklin West, Barry, and St. Johnsbury.
Okay, and the totals add up correctly, right? So we had 34 voting delegates.
I believe I said didn't we have 22 in favor?
I think you said 22 and 11.
Yes, 22 and 11.
So we only had 33 that actually voted.
Right.
Did we have an abstention? Dave Sharp, I see your hand up.
Yes, I abstained.
Okay. All right, so the numbers then, Sue says that passes or does not pass?
Just a moment, I want to refer to the bylaws for a second.
Okay.
Yes, it does pass.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on then to resolution number 9. Resolution 9 was submitted by the Otter Valley Unified Union School District and Essex Westford School District. The language of resolution 9 is, be it therefore resolved that the school boards of Vermont request the state and federal governments provide the financial resources promised in pre-existing laws, as well as provide for new burdens placed on public schools by the pandemic and beyond. And be it further resolved that the state and federal governments must provide this financial support in a manner that ensures our children receive the necessary academic, physical, and emotional resources, not by privileges and advantages for some, but by the opportunities we generously bestow upon all. The VSBA board's recommendation for resolution number 9 is passed. And as a reminder, the preferred motion language would be move that we adopt resolution number 9. With that, I will look for a motion. Floor.
I move that we adopt resolution number 9. Thank you.
That's,
Washington Central.
Yep, Flora D.S. Smith, Washington Central Terra Suite. Are you the second?
Yes, Terra Suite, Franklin West, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the resolution? See any hands raised? Don Collins.
Maybe I should wait and say this after the vote, but I'm going to say it before. I want to thank Kim Gleason and Bill Mathis for doing either 7 or 8 revisions on this motion. They were tenacious, they were persistent, and they were walking hand in hand with different messages.
Thank you, Don. Any other comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none then, all those in favor of adopting this resolution, please raise your hand.
There are 34 hands raised. Southwest Vermont SU, Maple Run, Franklin West, Bennington Rutland SU, SAU 70, Greater Rutland, Wyndham Central, Missisquoi Valley, South Burlington, Essex Westford, Mount Abe, Lamoille South, River Valley Tech, Kingdom East, Windsor Southeast, Champlain Valley, Mount Anthony, Mount Mansfield, Washington Central, White River Valley, North Country SU, Rutland Northeast, Hartford, Addison Northwest, Rutland City, Caledonia Central, Orange East, Windsor Central, Mill River, Milton, Grand Isle, Barry, Burlington, St. Johnsbury.
Thank you, Sue. We're going to lower the hands. I'm going to call for the no votes, but I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen there. All those opposed?
There are no hands raised.
Good, because if there was one there, that would have screwed me up completely. All right, resolution passes, and we are officially through all of the resolutions this evening. So thank you, everyone. You did an amazing job. We will move on then to other business. Are there any other items of business that folks would like to bring forward this evening? Lori.
Hi, Lori Childers, Addison Northwest. Maybe I fell asleep, but did we do the bylaws committee report? Did I miss that? It's on the agenda and I just wondered.
There were no changes proposed to the bylaws this year.
So it's just on there as a, here it is, but we didn't change anything. So we don't need to accept, it says action. So that's why I'm asking.
There is no action needed on that.
Yeah. No changes to the bylaws this year. Don Collins.
Neil, I want to commend you and Sue and Sandra for running a great meeting. I think you and I are both involved in two experiences where it was somewhat chaotic and a little disastrous. And I think through your hard work and the good work of the staff in preparing the script and making sure everything was operating. And I certainly want to thank Carrie because she's the go-to person. But I think it's been a great meeting. I think it went smoothly. And having lived through a couple that were a real challenge, I think Vermont showed how to do it right.
Thank you very much, Don. And certainly we could not have done it tonight without the exquisite support of the VSBA staff. So certainly want to say a huge thank you, not only to Sue Siglowski, but also Susan Holson, Sandra, Cameron, Carrie Lamb. We couldn't do any of this without those guys. They are the backbone of the organization and greatly appreciated. And I see all the claps going on as well too. So thank you so much, staff.
Neil, excuse me. I see Kim Gleason's hand up.
And I was just getting ready to allow her to talk, and she can talk now.
I realized I was remiss in not thanking our finance committee because the work this summer was a little bit more than is normally the case as we plan a budget. It was different to plan this transition budget. So thank you to Lori and Jim and Heather for their commitment to more meetings than we normally have for that purpose. And I will say that there was always so much to be learned in a walk with Dr. Mathis. So thanks for the acknowledgement, Don. And thank you all for a good meeting.
Thank you, Kim. Any other items of business that folks want to bring forward this evening? James Payton.
Yeah, how about a motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second. Tara Sweet, Franklin West.
Thank you, Tara. All those in favor, you can raise your hand, and after you have raised your hand, you are free to go. Thank you everybody so much for all of your participation in this. You guys are the backbone of the VSBA. It's the resolution process that really drives all of the work that we've done. And so I thank you so much for being an active part of that. You guys are the things that, that keep us moving forward and keep us strong. So thank you so much.
A great meeting. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Grab your beer.
I'm getting my beer now. Bye-bye. Both.
It is
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. You guys did a great job.
Thanks.